The hiker had wandered 3 miles off the main trail when he noticed something white protruding from the sand. On March 18th, 2024, in the Nevada desert, 34-year-old wildlife photographer Marcus Webb bent down to examine what he thought was an animal bone. When he brushed away the sand and saw a human skull, he stumbled backward in horror. But the real shock came when the forensic team arrived and began excavating. They didn't find one body. They found three. Three young women, all buried in the same remote stretch of desert, all within 50 feet of each other. For 22 years, a serial predator had been hunting at a lonely gas station on Highway 95, and 21-year-old college student Megan Davis, who vanished in 2002, was just the beginning. The killer had been hiding in plain sight, pumping gas and taking lives. Marcus Webb had started his desert hike at 6:30 that morning. He was a professional wildlife photographer and frequently took trips to remote areas of Nevada to photograph desert foxes, roadrunners, and rare birds. That day, he'd parked his car at mile marker 247 on Highway 95 and started walking away from the main road into the desert. The sun hadn't risen yet, and the air was cool, perfect photography conditions. After walking about 3 miles, he stopped near a small rock formation. He set up his tripod and began waiting patiently. He'd seen a desert fox and was hoping to photograph it. But the fox fled, and Webb looked around in disappointment. That's when he saw it. Something white, slightly protruding from the sand, gleaming in the morning sun. Webb was curious. Maybe it was an animal bone, maybe an ancient fossil. He bent down and gently brushed the sand away. More whiteness appeared. He brushed more. And then he realized this was a skull, a human skull. His heart raced. He stood up, stumbled backward. He pulled out his cell phone. The signal was weak in the middle of the desert, but sufficient. He called 911. I found a human skull in the desert, about 3 miles east of Highway 95, near mile marker 247. The operator tried to keep him calm, took his coordinates, and told him to stay put. Webb waited, staring at the skull in fear. Within an hour, the first patrol car arrived, followed by detectives and forensic teams. Detective Carlos Mendez from the Nye County Sheriff's Department was the first senior detective to arrive at the scene. Mendez was 47 years old, had 22 years of experience, and had solved some of Nevada's toughest cases. But this day, he would encounter one of the most shocking discoveries of his career. Forensic teams began carefully excavating around the skull. The first skeleton was fully exposed, female, young, probably in her 20s. But then, a few feet away, they found something else, a second skull. And then, 50 feet further, a third. Mendez looked at the three graves, three young women, all buried in the same remote desert location. This wasn't random. This was a cemetery, and this was the work of a serial killer. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Patricia Vega began examining the bones. The first victim was buried deepest, and based on bone degradation, had been there for at least 20 years. The second victim was approximately 15 years old. The third victim appeared to be 8 to 10 years old. 3 different time periods, said Dr. Vega. The killer remained active for years and always buried in the same place. Mendez looked at the 3 graves and thought, this location wasn't coincidental. The killer knew this place, knew how to get here, and came here regularly. The nearest main road was Highway 95, 3 miles away. What was in this area? Almost nothing. Just a few gas stations, a small town, an endless desert. DNA analysis began. The Nevada State Forensic Laboratory attempted to extract DNA from the 3 skeletons. Desert conditions were harsh. Extreme temperatures, dry air, years of degradation. But modern techniques had greatly advanced, especially in extracting DNA from bone samples. It took 6 weeks. But in early May 2024, results began coming in. First victim. DNA profile extracted. Compared with missing persons, database match found. Megan Elizabeth Davis, 21 years old, University of Nevada student, disappeared October 12, 2002. Second victim. Brittany Ann Cole, 23 years old, waitress in Las Vegas, disappeared March 8, 2002-2009. Third victim. Jennifer Marie Walsh, 19 years old, community college student, disappeared November 15, 2015. Mendez placed the 3 files on his desk. 3 young women, 3 different years, but all buried in the same place. He had to find the common thread. He opened Megan Davis's file. October 12, 2002, Saturday night, 2:17 a.m. Megan was driving home from the University of Nevada for fall break. She was driving from Reno to Las Vegas on Highway 95. At 2:17 a.m., she'd stopped at Desert Oasis gas station and used her credit card. At 2:43 a.m., a trucker had pulled into the station and found Megan's car, engine running, door open, gas nozzle on the ground. Megan was gone. Brittany Cole's file. March 8, 2009, Sunday night, 1:45 a.m. Brittany was a waitress at a restaurant in Las Vegas. She was returning home after the night shift, but was driving north on Highway 95 to visit her girlfriend. Credit card record, Desert Oasis gas station, 1:45 a.m. She was never seen again. Her car was found abandoned on the side of the highway 2 days later. Jennifer Walsh's file. November 15th, 2015, Sunday night, 2:33 a.m. Jennifer was a community college student and had spent the weekend in Reno with her family. She was returning to Las Vegas. Credit card record, Desert Oasis gas station, 2:33 a.m. She didn't show up for work the next day. Her car was never found. Mendez looked at the 3 files. 3 women, 3 different years, but all had stopped at the same gas station, Desert Oasis. Highway 95, mile marker 247, exactly 3 miles from where the bodies were found. This couldn't be coincidence. Mendez began investigating the Desert Oasis gas station. The station had opened in 1985. It was purchased in 1989 by a man named Roy Edward Whitfield. Whitfield had operated the station since then. 35 years Roy Whitfield. Mendez wrote down the name and began researching his background. Roy Edward Whitfield was born in Nevada in 1954. He'd grown up in a small town, finished high school, joined the Army. After being discharged in 1975, he'd returned to Nevada. He'd worked various jobs: construction, truck driving, gas station attendant. In 1989, he'd bought Desert Oasis. He'd married in 1991, Sandra Whitfield. They'd had 2 children, but in 1997, Sandra had filed for divorce. The divorce documents used vague language, irreconcilable differences. Sandra had moved to California with the children and never returned. Roy had continued operating the station alone. Over the years, he'd become a regular fixture on Highway 95. Travelers knew him, always smiling, always helpful, always kind. Local police found him reliable. He'd report suspicious vehicles. He'd help stranded motorists. When Megan Davis disappeared in 2002, Roy was the first to call police and cooperate. Mendez found the 2002 investigation file. Detective Thomas Riley had managed the case at the time. He read Riley's report. Roy Whitfield had been questioned. He'd provided the station's security camera footage. The footage showed Megan arriving at 2:17 a.m., starting to pump gas. But at 2:24 a.m., the camera angle changed, showing a different pump. And when it returned to Megan's pump at 2:31 a.m., Megan's car was there, but Megan wasn't. Riley had written in his report, Security camera angle limited. Mr. Whitfield cooperative and concerned. Alibi solid. He was at the station all night. Camera shows him behind the counter. Mendez frowned. The camera angle changed. This was interesting. He found the 2009 Brittany Cole investigation. Different detective, different department, but same result. Roy Whitfield had been questioned, was cooperative, provided security footage. The footage was blurry due to technical issues. The 2015 Jennifer Walsh investigation again. Roy Whitfield was questioned. Again, he was cooperative. Again, the security camera was malfunctioning. 3 missing women, 3 investigations. In each one, Roy Whitfield had been questioned, and in each one, he'd been cleared. In each one, the security camera had either changed angles, was blurry, or was malfunctioning. Mendez was beginning to see the pattern, but he needed DNA evidence. The third DNA profile at the graves, the killer's DNA, was still being analyzed. There was trace evidence found with the 3 victims, fabric fibers, soil samples, and critically, foreign DNA found on one of the bones, Dr. Vega explained. On the second victim, Brittany Cole's bones, we found the killer's DNA, probably contact during burial. Mendez took the DNA profile and sent it to the Nevada Criminal Database. No match. Roy Whitfield had no criminal record, so his DNA wasn't in the system. But Mendez didn't give up. He began working with genetic genealogy specialist Dr. Emily Chen. Dr. Chen uploaded the DNA profile to public databases. GED match, family tree DNA. 3 weeks later, a match came. Third cousin. Dr. Chen began building the family tree birth records, marriage certificates, death records, census data. She traced lineages backward, then forward. It took 6 weeks. In July 2024, a name emerged, Roy Edward Whitfield. Mendez took a deep breath when he read the result. The gas station owner. The man who'd worked on Highway 95 for 35 years. The owner of the station where all 3 missing women were last seen. But Mendez had to be careful. Genetic genealogy was a powerful tool, but for conclusive evidence in court, he needed direct DNA comparison. He had to get a DNA sample from Roy Whitfield. They made a plan. On August 8, 2024, Mendez and his team went to the Desert Oasis gas station. Roy was 70 years old, still operating the station. Gray-haired, medium height, slightly overweight, smiling as always. "Hello, officer," said Roy. "How can I help you?" Mendez replied politely. "Mr. Whitfield, we'd like to ask you a few questions about an old case, about the missing women on Highway 95. Roy's face looked concerned. But a fake concern? Ah, yes. Terrible things. I still feel sorry for those girls. We never found out what happened to them. Actually, said Mendez, we found their bodies. Roy's face froze for a moment. Then he composed himself. Really? That's terrible. Where did you find them? 3 miles from here, in the desert. Roy shook his head. Terrible. Who could have done it? Mendez was watching Roy carefully. We're investigating. Mr. Whitfield, as a routine procedure, could we ask you to provide a DNA sample? We're taking them from all potential witnesses. Roy paused for a moment. A very brief pause, but Mendez noticed. Of course, said Roy. I'd be happy to help. The DNA sample was taken. A cheek swab. Mendez thanked him and left. The sample was sent to the laboratory. 3 days later, the result came. Perfect match. The DNA found on Brittany Cole's bones belonged to Roy Whitfield, August 10th, 2024, 6 a.m. Mendez arrived at Roy Whitfield's house with a SWAT team. The house was 5 miles from the station, on a remote desert property. It was a single-story modest house. They knocked on the door. Roy opened it in his pajamas. Roy Edward Whitfield, said Mendez, you're under arrest in connection with the murders of Megan Davis, Brittany Cole, and Jennifer Walsh. Roy's face fell. The old man looked destroyed for a moment. Then his shoulders sagged and he bowed his head. "I knew," he whispered. "I knew they'd finally come." At the station, Roy was read his rights. He requested an attorney, and a public defender was assigned. But after meeting with the attorney, Roy said he wanted to confess. "I've carried it for 22 years," he said. "I can't carry it anymore." The formal interrogation began. Mendez turned on the recorder. "Tell us what happened, Mr. Whitfield." Roy took a deep breath. Megan was first, October 2002. She was a beautiful girl, young, full of life. She came to the station at 2 a.m. She was alone. I couldn't control myself. "What did you do?" "While she was pumping gas, I went out the back. There's a dark corner behind the station. The cameras don't see. I approached her from behind. I strangled her. Then I put her body in my truck and took her to the desert 3 miles in. I buried her there." Mendez was taking notes. "And the others?" Roy closed his eyes. "Brittany in 2009. Jennifer in 2015. The same way they all came late at night. They were all alone. They were all vulnerable." "What happened to the security cameras?" Roy laughed bitterly. "I controlled them. I could change the camera angle. Sometimes it malfunctioned. The police never suspected. I was just the helpful gas station owner." "How did you hide it for 22 years?" Roy looked at Mendez. "I hid in plain sight. I got along with everyone. I helped the police. I was a respected citizen in the community. Who would suspect? Just pumping gas while silencing the voice inside me." Mendez asked the question, "Why?" Roy was silent for a long time. "I don't know. I really don't know. Power? Control? Something dark inside me. I couldn't stop it. Each time I told myself, I won't do it again." But years passed and the urge came back. The confession was complete. Roy Whitfield admitted to killing 3 young women. When the news spread, Nevada was shocked. At a small gas station, in plain sight, a serial killer had been hunting for 22 years. 3 families finally learned the fate of their loved ones. 3 missing women finally got their identities back. Linda Davis, Megan's mother, gave a press statement. "For 22 years, I stopped at that station. I trusted that man. He'd killed my daughter, and I was asking him, 'Any news about Megan?' The world is sometimes so cruel." Brittany Cole's family, Jennifer Walsh's family, they all told similar stories. Roy Whitfield had known them all, had shown sympathy to them all, had lied to them all. The trial began in November 2024. Roy Whitfield was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of kidnapping before the jury. The prosecutor presented evidence, DNA evidence, confession, the pattern of burying 3 victims in the same place. Roy's attorney tried to present his client's age and confession as mitigating circumstances, but the jury was not swayed. Verdict: guilty 3 counts of first-degree murder. Sentence: life in prison, no possibility of parole, 3 times. Roy Whitfield, at 70 years old, would spend the rest of his life in prison. At the sentencing hearing, the 3 victims' families spoke. Linda Davis turned to the jury. "My daughter was 21 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She wanted to be a teacher. She wanted to help children. Roy Whitfield took her from me. For 22 years, I lived not knowing what happened. This man fed on my pain. Sentence him, but know that no sentence will bring Megan back." The judge's voice was harsh when he announced the decision. "Mr. Whitfield, you are the worst kind of killer under the guise of a trusted community member. You preyed on vulnerable young women. You killed them and condemned their families to over 20 years of hell. Society must be protected from you." Roy bowed his head and said nothing. The Desert Oasis gas station on Highway 95 was closed. The building stands empty. Windows boarded up, pumps rusted. No one wants to buy gas there anymore. The station stands as a monument to one of Nevada's darkest secrets. The burial site is now a memorial. 3 small crosses, 3 names: Megan Davis, Brittany Cole, Jennifer Walsh. Families sometimes visit, leaving flowers. The desert is silent, but now that silence is different, it no longer hides secrets. Detective Mendez gave an interview after closing the case. This case taught us a lot. Killers don't always look suspicious. Sometimes they're the people we trust most. Roy Whitfield lived as a reliable citizen for 35 years. But in the darkness, he killed 3 innocent women. Without technology, DNA analysis, genetic genealogy, we could never have solved this case. This technology didn't exist in 2002. It does in 2024. And because of this technology, 3 families finally got their answers. Genetic genealogy specialist Dr. Emily Chen also spoke. This case shows the power of genetic genealogy. Even without a match in traditional DNA databases, we can find killers through family trees. Roy Whitfield's DNA wasn't in any criminal database, but his distant relatives' DNA was in public databases. By following that connection, we found him. Modern science means killers have nowhere to hide anymore. Megan Davis's best friend, Sarah Thompson, wrote on social media, "Megan was the kindest person I ever knew. She wanted to help everyone. At 21, her whole life was stolen. For 22 years, we didn't know what happened. Now we know. And that knowledge is both comforting and painful, Megan. We'll never forget you." Roy Whitfield is now in Nevada State Prison. At 70 years old, his health is declining, and he'll probably die there. His attorneys didn't file an appeal. Roy accepted his guilt and accepted his sentence. Highway 95 still cuts through the Nevada desert. Cars still travel this road. People still stop at gas stations. But now everyone is a little more careful, because this case showed that danger sometimes hides in the most unexpected place, in the most trustworthy-looking person, and the Nevada desert continues to keep its secrets. Who knows what other stories lie beneath those sands? If this story moved you, please subscribe and hit the like button. Every subscription helps us continue investigating cold cases that families are still waiting to solve. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and which unsolved case you'd like us to cover next.